Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Leadership Talks for Emerging Leaders. Leadership Talks is a podcast hosted by Leadership Card, a leadership coaching training organization. Leadership Card is the brainchild of four individuals: Kirandeep Sandhu, Ashish Tata, Ram Ramakrishnan, and Devesh Mohan, who share a common vision to support 1 million emerging leaders to solve problems for self, others, and the organization. Leadership Card runs leadership programs for individual contributors and corporate clients, and our coaches come with over 100 years of experience from diverse fields such as academics, finance, operations, and real estate. Every week on Leadership Talks, we invite leaders from varied fields and industries to share their stories so that you can accelerate your personal and professional journey with them. I'm your friend Kirandeep Sandhu, a leadership communication coach, and I'm hosting today's episode along with Devesh Mohan on strategy, execution, and leadership. Over to you, Devesh.
Thank you, Kiran. And today we have a privilege of having Ashutosh Rajput, who is in the profession of spirits. You heard it correctly. It's not a spirituality, but in the profession of spirits. And he currently works as a country head for Campari India, an iconic liquor brand. And by education, he is a mechanical engineer and an MBA from IIM Kolkata. Ashutosh has several years of management experience in South Asia. He has successfully scaled up business operations for established as well as startup organizations in India, from laying down the strategic vision, designing the roadmap, and ground execution. Ashutosh has successfully and tactfully navigated the landscape of Indian business environment. As a leader, some of his strengths are clarity of thought, communication with internal and external stakeholders, nurturing talent, and high adaptability coupled with high emotional quotient, which has contributed immensely towards his success. So, Ashutosh, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for making time to be with us today. So, thank you so much, Ashutosh, for being here.
Thank you, Devish, for your kind and nice words and the nice introduction. And thank you, Kiran, for having me on this program. Just on the spirits and spirituality, that's how I like to define myself. These are the two words because I think big part of my career I've already spent in the spirits business. And
I love it.
spirituality is something that I picked up a long time ago. Uh, Sitting on the beach at Visakhapatnam, if anyone has been there, there is a very nice Ramakrishna mission ashram
Mhm.
right on the beach
Yes.
there, and the kind of bliss that I felt sitting there
Mhm.
has stayed with me, and yep, it's been a fascinating journey between spirits and spirituality for me.
Oh, good.
Love
So
it.
it's like it's like spirituality complement you from a spirit point of view. So that's great to know.
It
Good.
complemented your spirit internally, so you that also gave you the direction to get into spirits. I mean, it's actually aligned. Your vision was pretty much aligned to where you were going. Very well. So, well, I'm going to take you, Ashutosh. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you have had a long journey with spirits and spirituality, but how would you describe yourself as a leader?
Uh, that's a bit of a trick question. I call it.
Mhm.
I rather than being seen as a leader, I prefer feeling like a people's manager.
Mhm.
Leaders sometimes take the connotation of leading from the front, that you have to be there all the time, ahead of everyone and showing them the way. Sometimes that's not how a good leader works. There are a lot of examples, especially when you look at the animal kingdom. Leader
Mhm.
is not someone who's at the front of the pack. Leader is someone who's at the back of the pack, ensuring that no one is left behind. Right. So
Mhm.
I think that's the common denominator that I think a good leader should have. So you need to define the path, But if you're defined the path, then you need to ensure that everyone is there in that journey together with you, and you ensure it not by walking in the front, but sometimes just being at the back, guiding everyone or people who are end of the pack, ensuring that they are aligned to what needs to be done.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
that's a very interesting thought, Ashutosh, because many times we see that leaders are there to lead from the front, but what you're saying that you need to make sure that the entire pack is together, which is so important for team to feel
Correct. So
successful and getting that recognition. So absolutely.
see, I think this philosophy also possibly people will have lived it differently. So if you walk into an organization which is 5,000 people strong, possibly the leader has to work differently. There possibly you have to be there at the front because you can't be there at the back leading, ensuring that all 5,000 people follow it. But in a smaller and a leaner organization, which possibly has 50, 100 people, I think there's a good mix between what you need to be doing at the front and what you need to be ensuring at the back. Because in a small team, I believe that every contribution is extremely important. In 5,000 people, you can easily try to put everyone into the bell curve and say, okay, bottom 5% people will always move out, and remaining 95% are working and contributing, and that's good enough. In a small team of 50 people, you can't say 5 people are not contributing, but 45 people will deliver. It doesn't work. Even if one person is not living up to the potential, uh, the organization will
Mm.
start facing challenges. And as we all know that we are always as strong as the weakest link in the chain.
I love
Absolutely.
all the analogies you've used about the animal kingdom, the links, as well as what you said that it's and giving between a comparison between the big organizations and the smaller organizations. Over to you, Devesh. How would you take this forward?
No, definitely. I think that's a really great way how you have described this in terms of that how different organization may need a different types of leadership skills, and that's
Hmm.
how possibly you are ensuring that to to make your organization successful. What is that right strategy? And that's
Hmm.
something which is great to know about. Thank you, Ashok, for that beautiful response. So, the second, what I have been going through your introduction, and what I found that you have not only ensured that you put right strategy in the forefront, but how you can really make sure that you are executing towards that strategy which you have set, so that you can get the desired goals. So what has been your secret to that successful strategy execution?
uh, Knowing that strategy is a commodity. So strategy is not something that you should spend too much time on. That's what I've always believed.
Mm,
Strategy is something which is just a goal setting for you.
mm,
Lot many times I find people and teams spending too much time on defining the goal, and then having a long 3 4 day session trying to figure out how we reach that goal. I
mm,
believe there is no perfect plan. There is never a perfect plan. You
mm,
work, you have a goal, which is your strategic approach, where you want to end up over the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. I think these are the three horizons I always look at. I don't look at timelines beyond this, because you don't control anything beyond maybe even a 3 year horizon. But you need to build your investment plans and your structures for a 5 year roadmap at least. So that's where the 5 year is for me is the upper threshold. But there's never, as I mentioned, there's never a perfect plan. So you define what
mm,
your 1 3 5 year old objective is, and start working on acting on it. uh,
mm,
some things will work, some things will not work. The whole story of a good leader is to figure out what is not working and what is working. If you don't understand that part when you're executing, you are going to one never be able to achieve your end goals, because your what is not working will keep on dragging you back. So the
mm,
whole story is to keep on improvising. So things which are not working, You need to figure out how we can change that. How do we adopt that? Whether we drop it completely, we look at completely different approach to what we started with possibly. So that's been my style of working always. The agility part is the strongest piece, in my opinion, for a leader to work on. Lot many times we end up falling into that trap that this is my plan which I defined, and I want it to be executed to the T. And if you're not doing it, then you're not fit to be part of the organization, and that's where the churns happen. People who are not able to deliver or not aligned, they start to figure ways of moving out of the team or out of the organization. But I think important piece as a leader is to figure out that why something is holding us back. What is that is not working, and accepting that part that this is not working. If you don't accept, you will never be able to figure out that what needs to be done next.
And that's something which is very interesting, because me coming from a sales background, many times we say that sales and the sales people should be like water, right? You will find out your own path in terms of to reach to your destination. So in a way, I was just trying to make that analogy what you're saying, Ashutosh, in terms of that, okay, you define your final goal which is there, but don't spend too much of time in terms of that how you would be reaching by sitting in the boardroom. Be on the ground in terms of to deliver on that piece, and if there are certain changes which you have to make as you're progressing towards it, do it, and don't be stuck to that particular boardroom strategy which is there, because that's not going to ultimately help you to reach. So yeah, that's a great way of looking onto it.
Bringing spirituality into it, like they say, there are many paths to heaven, right? So we all don't need to follow the same path.
It's through spirits
Absolutely.
or spirits.
Yes,
It can work either.
Spirit.
Yeah, it can work
correct.
either way that you can get to heaven. In fact, I thought this conversation on how you've talked about strategy and basically a commodity. It's really interesting because at Leadership Card, we're constantly talking about leadership and goal setting. And Devesh, in fact, teaches goal setting as one of his core modules. And his mantra is, tie your shoes and run towards your goal. So he's constantly talking about setting those goals. So now, Devesh, now you have a contra view which has come from Ashutosh. Well, how would you just want to add on to that? I mean,
No,
are you
so
what he has
I
said?
would say that, and I would say that ultimately you have to set that goal where you have to see
Yeah.
that 3 year or 5 year horizon which is there, but the route to that could be different, and that's where I was just thinking when he was when Ashu, you were talking about the don't spend too much time on strategy, and that's something where you were focusing on. You have to focus on the team which is working and how they are aligned, or the changes which they are seeing in the ground. You need to be aligned to that and change that so that you can deliver onto that. And there is this one quote which I have heard lot many times, that many times strategy becomes the a breakfast of the culture, something like that, which is there, right? And if you don't have the right culture, which in a way you are saying that if you are not building that right culture of the team to drive towards that goal, probably strategy is not going to work. So
Correct.
absolutely great. Thank you for that. And then with that, let's move on to the next question, which is uh, in general, because again, coming from an IT industry background, I see that over a period of time, most of the industry have fundamentally made IT as the foundation based on which they have started to respond to the business. So, how you are seeing digital transformation, which has become the reality in the recent time across all industries, how you are seeing that in general it's impacting your industry, how you are leveraging digital in the growth of your company or in general in your industry.
Uh, in general, I would any day love to be sitting on in front of the screen, and the drink that I love to have just coming up, walking out of the screen into my hand, right? but incidentally, that can't happen. Whatever technology we are able to develop, our businesses are very people oriented, right? We need to interact live with people, whether whatever environment or the channels that we call in our businesses, we need to be physically there, be there, and a consumer also needs to be physically present there. So on that front, technology to some extent enables the way we are able to do it in terms of having enough the ERP modules which are able to define what what sells in a particular environment, and how you are able to ensure efficient delivery of your goods into that particular retail environment or the bar and restaurant where the consumer is walking into. So from the front ending part, there is only very limited scope that the technology is able to help us with. But in the back end, with large organizations, we use technology the same way that any large manufacturing company uses. In terms of our production planning, in terms of our logistics planning, how we are able to minimize the cost, make it more efficient. So, but it's an ever growing, evolving, I think, platform for us. In India, we are still in the early stages. So we are in the process of setting it up as an organization for ourselves, how technology can enable better and more efficient delivery of the experiences that we create to our end consumers.
No, good, good. And yeah, so ultimately, the point here is that ultimately it's human to human relationship, which ultimately makes the final sense, or the final break of getting into that business. All the technology can always be there as a decision support system. It can give you some analytics to really understand that where you possibly have to invest time or money, but ultimately it's about being human and being into that people oriented engagement, which ultimately drives everything. So
Yeah,
good, thank you so
because
much. Mm.
our business and product is all about socializing. So yes, we have
Yes.
seen during the COVID period, the pandemic lockdowns, it becomes a bit of a challenge. But as soon as things started to open up, you see people going out. You walk into any holiday destination or any place where people want to hang out in the evenings, they all are fully packed. So it shows that as humans, we do not like being alone. We do not like being secluded. We like to have people around. We the need for us is to talk, to listen, to share, and that happens when you're together. And all the more it happens, the experience gets better if you have the product that we sell right there on the table or in their glasses that they're holding.
So I'm going to take this
Absolutely.
conversation now, Ashutosh, from the industry that you're working in to you as a person, as a leader. We've talked about how your growth journey, how you've gone up, you've helped with building businesses, startups, but I'm sure there were probably many failures throughout this journey which have defined you, which have given you those setbacks, which later turned into challenges. I mean, later turned into opportunities. Would you be able to share with our viewers a little bit about your setbacks and how that have helped you or defined you as a leader? Because a lot of us go through those challenges and we stop.
uh, I think the first learning that you get very quickly in your life, and if you don't get it, then it's a serious matter, is that what you study theoretically in the business school doesn't work in the real world. So there are a lot of ideas, concepts that are taught, but I would say most of your learning happens on the job, on ground, and you learn from people you work with. Incidentally, your bosses in the initial years have a very strong impression and influence on you in terms of how your management style evolves. the the first, I wouldn't call it a negative, but the first positive that I learned in my life was I walked into Vizag city operations. I didn't understand the language, and my boss walked over to me. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Do not look for acknowledgement and appreciation all the time. That's the first thing that you need to learn. And second, opportunity knocks very softly. So keep your ears and eyes open to understand that there's an opportunity knocking. But after that, yes, the most important thing to learn also is that when you are working with people, you have to trust people. Sometimes you end up trusting people without understanding what those people stand for. And I think that's the biggest learning that I've had. That yes, I still trust people. It does not that does not mean that I stop trusting people. I still trust people as much as I was trusting when I started my professional life. But then you become smarter in terms of asking the right questions, understanding try to understand the motives of people. What makes them do what they are trying to do? What makes them set a particular goal? What makes them define a particular path? And that gives you a great insight into what works for them. To what extent uh, the integrity of people in terms of their thought and action is what you learn as experience over a period of time. Because I think this is the biggest mismatch which I find with a lot of leaders. The strategic part that they talk about and the roadmap that they take for themselves are two very different things. The moment you start to understand the motives between the differences or reasons for those differences, you are able to figure out whether you can build a trust or you want to understand a bit more. So I think that's been my biggest learning in life, working with people.
And that is the reason why we have these leadership talks, because we want people to learn from other people, their stories and challenges. Because we always look at the success stories and we can't start questioning ourselves in self doubt that, maybe there's something wrong with me. But people don't talk about all those challenges that they had to overcome in order to become who they are today. It's
No.
actually a learning when we share about these things so that others can pick it up too.
Yes. No, and many times I've heard people saying that, okay, I will learn from my experience. Uh, why I need to really get into some training or coaching or even listening to podcasts or podcasts which are there. But these are few things which becomes important, because definitely you can learn from your experience, but remember what's going to happen, that the time it would take for you to, because there would be failures in between, but if you can learn from the failures or learnings of others, then probably your path to success could be faster, that road could be quicker. So yeah, that's really great point in terms of what you talked about, Ashutosh, around trust, in terms of the integrity of people in their action and words, and how many times it differ. And as people mature, they are able to understand that how they are superimposing on each other, or is still that there is a difference there. So yeah,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
I'm going to just ask you for two insights for those leaders who are trying to build resilient teams. How can you build resilient teams, especially in a remote setting?
Oh. When we started our journey in the Indian market, I'm sorry, we have some.
That's perfect.
Don't
Yeah.
worry. Fine. Let's just continue. Yeah.
Sure. So when we started the journey of increasing our team size, we were right in the middle of COVID lockdowns. So we still decided that no, we are committed to this goal that we have, and that's where the improvisation part comes in. So you start taking interviews online rather than doing it offline, face to face. But you still need to go ahead. Uh, when you're building a team, uh, I believe strongly in people, because as someone asked me, what do I do? I keep on saying that I lead people in terms of what the goal is. The team needs to deliver. I don't go and deliver the stuff that the team is delivering. I don't have that competency set possibly to go out and do all that work. So you have to identify the needs of the organization, uh, that need space you need to start filling up. First piece is that do not overdo the structure part. You need to scale up the structure basis your current scale of business. I've seen organizations which are, in terms of their revenue and profitability, not there, still there, and scaling up the business with the best in the class talent, and trying to build the business with that team. Usually, it ends up not as a great experience. That's what practically I've seen. So my theory always is to build the bottommost layer who's going to be eventually be delivering work, and then once the business increases, grows, you figure out who in those team can take up a bigger responsibility, higher responsibility, and promote them, reward them. In case you think, no, I need to bring in another competency set over the team, then you bring in a leader who runs that particular set of part of the business. So the scaling up, in my view, needs to be bottoms up rather than top down. Not many companies do it the other way. They hire all the CXOs, and then they start to figure out, okay, how do we build a structure below them? uh, to me is something that is not sustainable. That's part number one. Part number two is, when you're building a team, uh, do not get fixated on the competency set. Competencies are something which you can teach. People can learn the competencies. No one comes with a competency to go out and become a great seller in the marketplace. This is something that you can grow as an individual. Things that you can't develop, to me, are integrity and adherence to a certain culture. So being culture, so what I look at is, will this person fit into the culture of the organization?
Very well put.
If
Very
someone,
well put.
yeah.
Mm.
So if
In fact,
someone
I
can
was
fit into the
thinking-
culture and has impeccable integrity, I value
Mm,
that person more.
mm,
Maybe considering, maybe that person might not have great experience, or he might not be the best performer that everyone talks about. I think that part can be taught to people. People
mm.
learn that part, and if
Absolutely.
you motivate them enough, the average performers end up delivering the best results for you.
In fact, I was just thinking, Ashutosh, now I understand when you said lead from the back. When you said bottom up, it's also from the top, your lead, building leaders from the bottom up rather than concentrating on the thing. We're nearly at the end. So, Devesh, will we like to wrap up the session?
No, it was really great. And while I was hearing you, Ashu, it's one thing which comes to my mind, and I have heard this somewhere, which is the ask principle. And that ask principle is about attitude, skill, and knowledge. And they come in this serial, because you need to have the right attitude, and if someone has that right attitude, you can help to build skills, and people can gain knowledge.
Yeah.
So great. I think that's something which has been really great talking to you, Ashu. Right from the starting, you gave a lesson which was like, okay, leading from the back, not from the front. I think
Mm.
that's one of the key lesson, and that's and you defined it also very well in terms of that, in what circumstances different types of leadership skills will be different, as you said, that maybe in a larger organization it could be a different way. So that was one of a great learning, that how you need to really change yourself from your leadership style based on in what type of industry and what type of teams you are leading. I think that was one of the great learning. The second was around in terms of that, don't dwell too much on the strategy. I think the point was, that focus on that how you can reach to that outcome which you have defined, and don't be fixated on the process can change, and that's something which is going to help you to reach that goal. I think that was the second uh, uh, well noted thing for me. And uh, then I am looking on in terms of what you learned from your failures, and that was where you talked about the trust part, right? How over a period of time you have really grown as an individual in terms of to understand that what someone is saying, whether he is actually delivering on that or not. And that is basically integrity and trust, which with which you focus on. So actually these were my three learnings
And
from today's session. And probably Kiran, you want to add?
now, with that, I would like to thank Ashutosh Rajput for joining us today on Leadership Talks. Leadership Talks will be back next week with another leader to share their journey. For more information, do check out our webpage, which is www.leadership.com for leadership programs, which will give you an edge in the industry. Follow us on Facebook as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Till we meet you next week, this is Ashutosh, Kiran, and Devesh signing off. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you very
being
much
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.